Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show, and welcome to Tuesday. Welcome to Tuesday, everybody. We're trying to spin it into Tuesday trivia, but I always fall short with my trivia. Sorry. But we are happy to be here. If you're new to the show, welcome. We read the Srimad Bhagavatam, the cream of the crop. We were saying yesterday about talking, we were saying in the verse yesterday about how yoga speaks of otherworldly things, higher planets, higher beings, even spaceships speaks about those. Thousands of years ago, they talk about flying machinery. But the yogis aren't the bhakti yogis. We're sort of amused by those things because they're interesting.
Some of us more than others.
Some of us are much more amused than others, but we have no great interest because name that verse, Kaustubha, from the highest planet down to the lowest. Come on!
You put me on the hot seat.
I'm putting you on the hot seat.
Brahma Bhuvana Loka Puna Arvatunojuna Mamu Pecha Tukontaya. Oh no, then it's Punar Janmana Vidyate. Yeah.
Okay. English translation. This is a great verse. If you like verses, this is from the Bhagavad Gita.
That from the highest planet in the universe down to the lowest, all the places of suffering wherein birth and death take place.
From the highest planet.
Yeah,
from the highest planet. So there's planets higher than ours. You think you got a good place? You think you got a cool apartment? You think you got a cool house? I got news for you. There's planets that make your house look like ghetto. And then you think you live in the ghetto? There's planets that make your ghetto look like a mansion. There's very high planets and there's very low planets. Now don't sweat it. They're all temporary. Like I've had some really bad apartments. Back when the Lower East Side was the Lower East Side. You know, you've been there too. Real bad, real sketchy. And you know what? You move. I don't live there anymore. Now I live in another place. But at any minute, things can shift around. That is the theme of today's show. Shifting sands.
Is that the theme? Shifting sands.
The shifting sands.
Okay.
Down by the... But let's just finish this verse because it's such a great verse. From the highest planet to the lowest planet. Some yogis in India want to go to higher planets. Why? It's better than this planet. Now we think like, that's weird. I want to go to Tulum. I want to go to the Caribbean. They actually have access to higher realms. And so yoga systems are based around leaving this body and what do they call it? Astral projection to other places. It's a real thing. But the Krishna saying, no. From those higher planets to the lower planets, it's still temporary. It's just like, yeah, I went on vacation, but I got to come back. Better just to always be in a crystal clear, connected place. Why? Because those places are temporary. There's birth and death there. What do you think of that? That's one of my favorite verses.
Why did we bring that up? Just because today we're talking about shifting sands?
No, we brought it up because, I don't know. Oh, because yesterday we were talking about interesting planets and demons and spaceships. And how we were saying how some people, it's interesting, but it can be diverting.
Okay.
And then Krishna sort of like just says, hey, look,
Don't get caught up in that.
don't get caught up in that. He also said that Yehi Shamsparsaja Boga.
Dukkha yoniya evate.
Another good verse for Mara, right?
Yeah, good for everyone.
What's the translation for that one?
Uh,
Those who
that-
are wise do not take part in the sources of misery.
Yeah.
Isn't that this is a great verse?
Which have to do with the contact with the sense contact, right?
That is such a great verse. Those who are wise do not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to coming into contact with the senses. Usually we think, I come into contact with the senses, that's a great thing. These so-called pleasures are not a great thing, they say, because the pleasures have a beginning and an end.
Mm-hmm.
The so-called pleasures, Krishna says, they have a beginning and an end. All of us, maybe all of us here on Zoom, are here because we realized the pleasures of this world have a beginning and an end.
Mm-hmm.
What is more subtle? How can I find a pleasure that doesn't end?
That's the deeper thinker goes there.
The deeper thinker goes
The more shallow thinker says, okay, well, why not enjoy what I can?
Why not try to create my life so everything is fun?
Yeah.
There's always a downside to that fun.
Yeah.
This is part of today's verse too. The shifting sands.
Shifting sands, like sands in the hourglass. So
The
are
hands of
days
the hands
of our lives.
yes. The hands of time, perhaps.
Why don't you go ahead and sing that Kansas song for us?
You know, I'm singing these songs. I don't even know where they're coming from. I don't know who the singers are, but everyone was telling me that was Kansas the other day.
That was Kansas. Oh, I was thinking of another Kansas song.
Oh, you're thinking of Dust in the
Wind.
Wind.
Yeah, you know, so you sing that
That's
occasionally.
a great song. Oh, we are as dust in the wind.
Okay.
They don't write songs like that anymore. You know what I mean?
Sometimes I'm grateful for that, but in any case.
Yes. All right. So, so we left the verse of monsters, aliens, and spaceships, which.
Oh, and then you know what happens after that verse?
No, I don't.
I mean, I was so happy for you that you had a verse that was just full on, like spaceship.
You didn't let me
alien.
fully indulge in it because spaceships are real.
I was happy to let you indulge. Yesterday was your day to indulge in that.
I didn't fully indulge.
You didn't fully indulge, and that was just your own fault. And now that's gone. That opportunity is lost. But that being said, there's something else that you're going to enjoy.
What's next?
That today's verse is a bona fide, 100% Krishna miracle.
And why is that?
Because if you took the 18,000 verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, my guess is that this may be the only one that speaks exactly, even uses the word that absolutely perfectly coincides with today.
What?
Well, today
Trivia
is
Tuesday?
the United States. No, it's not trivia. I'm not talking about Trivia Tuesday. I'm talking about Election Day. Today's election.
It talks about Election Day
And
in this
this-
report, and
Yeah, so-
it's this was unplanned.
No, it was totally unplanned. So in other words, if you take that we have an election day, presidential election day, once every 4 years. So that's, that's like every, 1,500 days, roughly, something like that. Right. So you have that figure in the mathematical equation, something like, I don't know maybe someone could give me how many days there are in 4 years. Mary, you on that?
1,460.
Okay,
That was
close.
fast, Mara. Mara,
That was
you're
close.
fast. She's sitting there with the calculator all day. For years, she's been sitting there with the calculator.
So if you had one wheel that was spinning that had 100, what was it, 1,460?
Yeah.
Numbers in the equation, and then you have another wheel that's got 18,000, and they both click on the same one. We got a verse that mentions elections
On election day? That is a
mathematically
Krishna miracle.
Mathematically, that's a very, very unlikely.
It's very unlikely. That's why, you know what's interesting, Kaustubha? This Krishna miracle thing, it is real. People are sending to me. If you're having a Krishna miracle in your life,
No, but I get this
please
one.
send it to me on Instagram at Raghunath Yogi. I'm collecting them. Maybe we'll make a coffee table book on Krishna miracles.
We're not going to do that. No, you can.
I'll make my own private
You can if you want.
Krishna miracle book.
But this one, mathematically, we can show. I mean, maybe you can figure that out, Mara. If we have a statistician around, so like that.
Yeah,
the chances of that happening.
Amaya says that the chances are 1 in 26.2 million.
That's incredible. That's a Christian. You see, now that is a Krishna miracle, Raghunath. Okay.
Well, it's
One, if you can give me a 1 in 26.2 million, I'll accept it. That's what happened today on the show.
Oh, come on. You don't think that thing when I pulled over my car, looked at my phone, and I got a
No.
message from Mara, and Mara drives by? You don't think that was a Krishna miracle?
Especially because you were only just slightly past your driveway. I do not accept that one as a Krishna miracle.
No, I wasn't. I was in a
That
whole
is-
different part of town.
That's not a 1 in 26.2 million. But today we have a 1 in 26.2 million. That I accept.
By the way, I also think they're sort of like just miracles of the material world, miracles that are mundane miracles. Like one time I was in Germany at a gas station and I ran into a friend from Japan in Germany at a gas station. And that was like crazy. There are mundane miracles, but I think when you're like focused on your spiritual thing, and I think there's like, The Secret, the movie The Secret, like what's it called?
I didn't see it, but I heard about it.
Oh, you should see it.
Okay.
What is it called? The power of, come on.
Positive thinking or something like
Oh,
that.
Mara, come on.
Power of
Intention.
intention.
Intent, power of intention. I think that's real. Like you can intent yourself to certain things, but when you're focused on a spiritual platform, then there's spiritual, the secrets, and that's a completely different thing. And those happen all the time. So I think these Krishna miracles are actually magical, but I think there's mundane magical things. I think there's even low grade miracles that can work if you want those things. But you got to be careful what you want. You got to be careful what your meditation is. I'm having sweet baby Krishna miracles all the time.
Oh, speaking of sweet baby Krishna.
Tonight is sweet baby Krishna, Tuesday night.
Yeah.
8:00.
So while all the election madness is going on,
we have that option. We'll be transcending. Yeah, that's your option. There's always an option. The election's going to happen whether you're there or not. And we're going to be reading Sweet Baby Krishna. And you know what? I'm voting for Sweet Baby Krishna.
I don't know if Sweet Baby Krishna is
He's going to
on
be
the
the
ballot.
president of my heart. He's going to be the president.
You could bring in
The
a
only,
little
one to
sticker.
the only qualified one to lead this country is a chubby little baby with a peacock feather in his hair.
I would vote. He would have my vote for sure. So shall we chant the mantras and get into this?
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should first offer obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloki bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Agana Tamarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksurunmidatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I got a trivia for you. Check this out before we get going.
This is what you were meditating on while you were chanting that mantra.
Well, you know why? Because the prayer brought it up. Who is Narayan the son of? The sons of? Who's their father? You're never going to get this because it's completely obscure, but I just read it the other day.
Well, maybe I've read it.
All right, you read it because I'm about to run out of juice in my computer.
I have no idea.
Yamaraj.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Isn't that unbelievable? Just read that. Here's another quiz. Who is Yama's sister?
For some reason, immediately Yamuna comes to my mind, but
Yep, Yamuna. Yama and Yami. Yama and Yami. They're sisters.
Okay.
They're
There you
brothers.
go. Well, I got 1 out of 2.
Yeah.
Look at the professionalism over here.
Mara, I forgot my plug.
By the way, Raghunath, I want to draw your attention to. It seems that the word irrevocable. I've sensed a trend over the course of the past 2 days that you're turning into Tony the Tiger when you say irrevocable.
Irrevocable. It's a fun word to say. Okay. At a certain point, I'm going to run into the other house and grab my daughter's computer cable. Yeah, it's okay. I'm just gonna pretend. I'm gonna tune off, pretend I'm not there, and I'm just gonna say, people put their photos on.
Maybe she's listening. Is she out there? Maybe she could bring it over, run it over.
She's up. We had a special. We had a very special Kartik evening last night. Stayed up a little late watching Napoleon Dynamite.
Okay.
Okay. So what
Now your battery's low, is that what you're saying?
it's sort of low.
No.
I'm at halfway.
You'll
Okay.
probably make it. Oh, you'll probably make it.
What's our text, brother?
So we are on text, Canto 2, Chapter 7, that is listing all of the scheduled incarnations, all the avatars.
Okay.
Text number 38, which is going to describe a future incarnation by the name of
Kalki.
Kalki.
So somebody's coming. That's the point here. Somebody's coming.
Yeah.
Just when it's looking bad. 38. Thereafter, at the end of Kali-yuga, when there exists no topics of the subject of God, no one's interested in spirituality anymore.
No.
Even at the residences of the so-called saints and respectable gentlemen of the three higher castes, and when the power of the government is transferred to the hands of ministers elected from the low-born Sudra class,
Is it elected right there?
or those less than them, and when nothing is known of the techniques of sacrifice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even by word, at that time the Lord will appear as the supreme chastiser. Well, if you think about it, if it wasn't for the whole resurgence in bhakti, a lot of these things get lost over time. Languages get lost. I mean, if you think about all the languages in North America they're practically lost languages, or like the Gaelic, these languages that only a handful of people speak, or Welsh. Ever go to Wales or Basque? It's like they have this language that barely anybody speaks.
Yeah.
These dying language, dying rituals, dying traditions. It's almost like our friend, our teacher, Ayendra Prabhu, who passed away. He did such a great service by like excavating kirtan, like bringing back like old melodies and almost like excavating these drum beats and then of course there's the people that popularize these classical dance and the chanting of mantras. These have all been excavated and preserved, and now are like flourishing. So I'm thinking, yeah, this is just like, I can see when these things go away, we lose our what's it called? Our sort of like there's like a passage out of this crazy mundane world, and sort of a access point out to a spiritual realm. And that's what Maharaj was saying in that interview we did with Satchidananda Maharaj. Kartik gives us a special seasonal opening to another realm. Your devotion is magnified this month, he said. And so these rituals, these mantras, the stories, they're sort of being revived right now, but there's a time when they'll be wiped off the planet.
That's what this is talking about here. End of Kali-yuga.
Cemented over, so to speak. And that's when trouble starts.
Okay. They get lost in the shifting sands of time.
Yeah. People forget that there's an internal world. That's easy to understand. We're living in a world that's just like, okay, you want sense gratification? We'll make sense gratification for you.
Now, did you complete this verse, or did you stop?
Yeah, I did. I read it all.
Okay. Shall we read some of the commentary?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff in the verse alone. Just like when you talk about these low-born,
okay, yeah. Let's talk about that.
Sudra class. I got news for everybody here. That's me. I'm a low-born Sudra class. Like low-born means, like, a lot of us were born into families. I mean, I love my family. I had a pretty good family. But that being said, the culture that we did of like consumption of alcohol, consumption of meat eating, if you actually like think about what you're actually doing, it's a very low bar. And sometimes when you go to India and you see these families that never have drank alcohol or never consumed meat, and you realize, and it's almost like they can't even get it, or they're just thinking, wow. But we come into these families. What to speak of if we have parents that are alcoholics, parents that are drug addicts, or parents that have been through hell, and just growing up in America. Sometimes we had to hold we had to like scrounge around for some type of security because our parents were so out of it. This is what we mean by low born. Like there was no family structure. There was no one there when I got home from school or to give us that type of love or support. Or some of us had to parent our own parents. So this idea of low born Sudra class, check, right?
You're raising your hand.
Yeah,
Well,
check. Yeah, here,
There's
I'm present.
There's a Puranic statement.
When we say Puranic, we don't mean by small fish with sharp teeth. Puranas are the ancient. Purana means old, so the old books, and there's like 18 Puranas. This book is one of them that we're studying. But go
I'm
on,
not
Kaustubha.
sure, but I think it may be from the Skanda Purana. But the statement is Kali-yuga Sambhavam, that in the age of Kali, everyone is born Shudra. Right.
In the age of Kali, sure, of course.
In other words, and what that means, if in our wisdom of the sages language, it means we're all dented cans.
Except Nitai Lieberman.
Well, there's
He's not a dented can, man.
Special
Somehow gets
exceptions.
by.
Yeah, but the idea is that it's mentioning the. Let me put it this way: when Srila Prabhupada came to the United States, his goal, part of his goal, often like people would ask him, like, why have you come here? Like an interviewer would ask him something like that. And he says, I've come to try to train up a group of first-class men. And when he said that, he really meant people, because he was trying to train the lady. He was giving the...
It was a time in history when if you said mankind, it wasn't like considered just men.
Because he was giving Brahminical initiation to women, Yeah. So what that meant was he was trying to create a group of Brahminical people that embraced and embodied and lived by Brahminical principles such as peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and dharma.
Kaustubha didn't just whip those off the top of his head.
Whip those off. Those are coming from Bhagavad Gita.
Describing what Brahmanas do. You want to be a Brahmana?
These are the qualities. These are the qualities. Yeah. So that's Bhagavad Gita 1842. Now, the idea was that if only people with these qualities are going to be capable to lead, the only people that have these qualities are capable of being selfless and kind and wise and can actually move society, influence society in such a way where it's for everyone's benefit.
This is big. Kaustubha, read it again. You want to lead? You need these. Read it again. Let's write these down. Tattoo these on your back, on your forehead.
Peacefulness. Self-control. And we have to ask, do our leaders, do they possess these qualities, right? Peacefulness, self-control.
Trying to think of that first debate. Yeah, I guess maybe self-controlled. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Austerity.
Nope.
Purity.
Maybe.
Nope. Tolerance.
No.
Honesty.
No.
Knowledge.
No.
Wisdom. No. And
some knowledge about stuff, I'm sure, but
and religiousness, and here we mean like genuine, that
dharma.
Yeah.
This word religiousness, it means a dharma.
Yeah. No, generally we're seeing a real lack of this in our leadership. And it says these are the natural qualities by which the Brahmanas work. And now the verse that we read today is speaking about 3 groups of categories of, it's really psychological categories, people with a certain psychology. One is being mentioned, the Brahmanas, people that by nature like to live simply, people that by nature they find their happiness in contemplation of higher topics, and who's naturally, some people are just naturally austere. Isn't it true, Raghunath?
Yeah.
We see people that they can just naturally, they actually find a certain happiness in that simplicity and that austerity. And that leads to purity, right? They're not searching. If I'm finding my happiness through a simple life, I don't need to compete with you for resources. And that's when, once that competition starts, I begin to justify and rationalize that competition. I begin to see friends and enemies. That's when the consciousness starts to get polluted. The Brahmana, because they're happy with that simple life, and they find satisfaction in contemplating the wisdom of these ancient texts, that their mind is regularly bathing in that wisdom, that they get a clarity. They could see truth. And
It's
yeah.
like these Brahmins. It's like these people that you meet. And sometimes you meet these people. You might be one of these people. I'm not. There are these people that are like instinctually intellectuals. Like they read something and they just have a great grasp of it. And they
Mhm.
can sit there and read deep philosophy sometimes for hours. And then they could stop and they could say, I just read this, and they just talk you back through
Yeah,
what
yeah.
they read. Whereas, like when I read something, I could be through like a paragraph, and Mara could say, "What did you just read?" I'll be like, "I don't know." You just read it. What did you read? I don't know. You ever do that? So it's like these people who are great intellectuals, but they're using their intellect for the welfare of all, and they're using their intellect to sort of real because the stuff. What's the stuff they're reading? They're not using their intellect for material gain. They're using their intellect to study sacred literature. What does a sacred literature push? That this world is temporary ultimately, and our
Yeah.
happiness is more internal than external. And
Right.
so all their great study leads them to simplicity, leads them to go inside, leads them to be thoughtful, leads them to not jump the gun and spit out things or fool like being a fool rushing in. And
Right. Right.
this is and living with leading with character and living with dharma. It's they're not using their because there's people who are very smart, but they use their smartness to manipulate, to get
Hmm.
what they want, to sneak, to be really sneaky, clever people. So we're not. This is a different type of intellects. Intellectuals then would study this literature and apply it to their life, and life would become very simple. And these people, and because they voluntarily have given up things,
Yeah.
they can make good. They're not. They can make good choices, and they can and you can ask them questions. You can ask them for advice because they have no material agenda.
There you
That's why
go.
they were the judges and the lawyers and the ministers and the doctors. They were the
Mhm.
doctors.
Yeah. They could give. They can always give that selfless. They can always come from that selfless place because they're satisfied. Because they're satisfied simply, right?
Yeah.
Now this verse is speaking about three different categories. It says the three higher castes. So that
Mm.
means there's the Brahmins. These are the simple spiritual leaders. These are the people that they give spiritual substance to society. They are infusing society, speaking the values. We when we go and we fill our head with and consume, information, we're
Mm.
going to all kind of sources that are just like, they're not uplifting us. They're not instilling deeper values, deeper clarity in us. These people, they were the storytellers, right? They'd be telling the stories and drawing the messages out of those stories so that people could become uplifted and get a clearer idea about what life is all about and how we should be living and how we should be cooperating and how everything should be centered spiritually. Now, then you had another class of people, and these were actually the political leaders, right? Like the rulers, which is called the kshatriyas. And they have a different psychology. They're kind of fearless in battle, and they're kind of the kind of people that are not afraid of conflict. You need a leader that's not afraid of conflict.
Yeah.
And I don't mean merely you know physical conflict, but like deal with the hard problems. Someone's got to get in there and deal with all that messy stuff, and they got to be strong, and they have to be morally strong. And so the idea was,
And they have to be humble enough to ask the brahmanas
that's where I'm going.
for advice
That
because they have that power, they have that strength, they have that wealth, they have that real estate, even. So they have everything materially, but there's a humility that they have that they will go to these paupers and say, hey, I'm about to do this. We're about to invade that country over there, and here's why. And if the Brahmin says, no,
No.
you're acting out of ego here,
Yeah.
then they'll be humble and submit to them. That's
right.
a powerful, when you have a leader that's humble like that, that's a very powerful leader.
Right. And now you got a society that can move in the right direction, because the people with the might, they're connected to the brain of society, to the moral, what's the word I'm looking for? Like think tank, if you want, let's say like that, right? There's this think tank of really wise, simple living that can't be corrupted, right? Because they don't need your money. They're not interested in your fame. They're not interested. They don't have any interest in that. And so the idea is, from a very young age, people would be trained to embrace these qualities. And the warrior would be trained, hey, you've got power. Everybody recognizes it. You're strong, you're dynamic. Everybody gets that, right? So right from the beginning, we want to instill within you the right values coming from Bhagavatam, coming from Bhagavad Gita. And part of that, as you're saying, is that I am submissive to those wise people that are speaking about peace, that are speaking about honesty, that are speaking about truthfulness, that are speaking about true spirituality, right? I can't just blow them off. They're the actual leaders, and I'm serving on their behalf. I'm just a servant, like that, right? And then there's another class, and that's called the Vaishyas. And now the Vaishyas are really, if we, you could call them the business people or the farmers, because farming was really the business, right? When you throw away all the junk, you walk into like a Kmart or whatever, there's a lot of junk there. Basically, the business was farming and a little bit beyond that.
Well, if you walk into like a super Stop and Shop, if you're from Europe, that's like a gigantic grocery store. Like, what do you really need to buy? You need some fruit. You need some veggies. You need some beans. You don't need the thousands of aisles. You need fruits and vegetables and beans, and that's and some pasta.
Yeah, someone to help you build your house, and someone to help you, build you need a few tools in life, but you don't need all this junk that we're producing.
Yeah.
There's some artisans and so on that have their trades and so on. But for the most part, you see, the Vaishya was like the employer, the person, like if there's a big farm, he's the person that owns the farm and that is employing the workers. And so that person is a good money maker. That person, we know people like this as well, right? They're good at making money. But, greed can be their weakness. So they're trained early on, when one can see that qualities, those qualities in them, they're trained early on that your role, what the way that you connect spiritually is by caring for your workers, is by being generous. But if you're making money, then really you're the person that's really caring for society on the economic level, and take pride. And if you're going to take pride in, like, nowadays, those people that are good at making money, they take pride in making lots of money. Really, your pride should be in caring for others with the money that you make. So it's a shift in psychology, but it's ingrained in one from a young age. And so these three classes are what he's mentioning here, that they're actually the minority in society, right? Like mathematically, statistically, there's few among these people, and it's expected that they live by a high level of integrity. It's expected that their habits and their lifestyle is like way up there, right? It's kind of like socially, expected. Now you don't have to be a Brahmana, but if you're Brahmana, you can't walk down the street, smoking a cigarette, wasting your time, doing totally mundane stuff. People are like, you're
supposed to set a standard. You're supposed to set a standard. I remember the first time I was like in fourth grade, and remember how they used to have the teacher's lounge in your elementary school. And I remember for going into the teacher's lounge by mistake, I opened the door and I saw my science teacher, this lady, smoking a cigarette, and I was like, oh no! it was heartbreaking.
Oh, poor Raghunath.
It shatters your idea. You're the leader. You're the parent.
I remember once similar but opposite experience, that I was spending some time in the Bhaktivedanta Hospital, Raghunath Swami's, the hospital that he was so involved in establishing. And basically, it's the whole staff, the majority of the staff, especially the leading staff there, is all his students, all his disciples. And I was in the cafeteria for the staff.
Right.
And I'm just overhearing the conversations, and like, it's like they're gathered around each other, and it's like, and so in Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj is telling to the other
These are the
students.
kind of people working at the hospital.
And I say, these are the doctors and so on. This is what they're talking about on their lunch break. It's like this.
Well, it's such a shift. I mean, I'm going to a hospital. I recently had a, what was it called again? I can't remember. Some procedure you get where they put the camera up your butt.
Okay.
Colonoscopy.
Thank you. Well, anyway, and I'm just thinking, like, ever be in that place where they say, and here's the doctor, and he walks in, and you're like, you're the doctor? You feel like saying, you're the guy, supposed to be like the picture of health? You? It's sometimes it's the least. Yeah. It's like it's almost like, come on, set the example of how to live, how to eat, how to be balanced. You're the doctor here. You want that out of a doctor. There's like a high. You're expecting some different standards. Yeah.
Well, that Bhaktivedanta Hospital, in one sense, when you look at that place, and I would recommend, if any of you ever go to Mumbai,
it makes you want to get sick in Bombay.
But when you look at that entire organization, which has, it has staff on all different levels. It has the high level, management and leadership, right? Then it has, the doctors themselves. And then it has like, the nurses and so on. And then it has, the staff that's like, the cleaners and the whatever, the maintenance people and so on. And you see that they're all working together smoothly, centered around a spiritual purpose, caring for one another, serving one another under very intense, hospitals are intense places. We have many people in our audience or amongst our listeners that are like, essential workers and hospital staff and so on. And, from my own experience in hospitals, I can see what a high stress environment it is. People are all on edge. People are so many of the people that are in the hospital are like in the most trying times of their life.
Yeah.
Both patients and family of patients. Emotions are high. You're in the face of a lot of suffering, intense suffering. And when I spent a week in that hospital once.
You did?
And living there. And
wait, what? You were sick, or you were?
I wasn't sick, but I was there
walking around the hospital.
So any case, I was so impressed with that institution, that organization. I said, these are the finest people on earth. That's how I felt, right? I thought these are really the finest people I've ever met, that they're deeply spiritual, they're hardworking, they're all working together well, and that's what the society is meant to do. And so that organization, it has a Brahminical leader, it has Raghunath Swami on the top of it, right?
You know what they do in the morning? They all get together in a circle and they sing a song together. How cool is that?
And they read from Bhagavatam together.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, all,
let's get Jen Mills working there.
They don't only
Jen Mills a gig there.
They do it 3 times a day. That like the staff all gets together in the lobby of the hospital, and they chant some mantras and sing some prayers, and they read a verse of Bhagavatam and commentary. And throughout the entire hospital, there's like music. There's like 3 channels in every room, but they're all, one's like Prabhupada doing kirtan, and one's Prabhupada giving lectures. And the atmosphere in that place is just so high. In my mind, that's what society is meant to be like. And Raghunath Swami has created a prototype of it, where you have the different classes of people. They're all happy and serving one another in cooperation, not in exploitation.
Yeah.
But in cooperation for a higher purpose. It's a really beautiful thing. So the idea is, what's being said here is that in the Kali-yuga, in the world that we live in today, who's choosing the leaders? The people that are choosing the leaders don't even know what a qualified leader looks like. And that's why we end up with these really crummy leaders. Today I'm going to go
we're not even qualified to.
We're not even
qualified to choose. We don't even know what's good and bad.
We don't even exactly. And so I'm going to go vote. When we're done with the show, I'm going to walk right over to my polling place and I'm going to vote.
What's that verse?
I don't know for that verse. Kaustubha voting. I'm not sure what that one.
What's that verse? In Kali-yuga, 16th. Those who are demonic do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Yeah. What do you do and what do you don't do? I don't even know. We rally behind things that are problematic sometimes, and then there are good things that we just back off from and look at it as taboo.
So my point is, I'm going to go vote.
Yeah,
but I'm going to vote for the person that I think least embodies the terrible qualities of Kali-yuga. That'll be the standard of my. Yeah. I'll cast my ballot for that candidate, which is not super duper incredibly intensively corrupt and weak in terms of their ability to lead for the benefit of the people. But and so why don't we read Prabhupada's commentary bit here and
okay,
we can translate it. There's not a lot of time left, but so maybe I'll read through it quickly. The symptoms of the worst conditions of the material world at this last stage of age called Kali-yuga are stated herein. The sum and substance of such conditions is godlessness. And even so, and when he says godless, if you want to just translate that, say a lack of true spirituality. Right? Even the so-called saints and higher castes of social orders, generally known as the Dvija Janas, the twice-born, will become atheists. In other words, they'll have no genuine spiritual connection. It'll just be in name only. As such, all of them will practically forget even the holy names of the Lord and what to speak of his activities. What we're actually meant to be purifying our mind with. The higher castes of society, named the intelligent class, guiding the destinies of the social orders, the administrative class of men, guiding the law and order of society, and the productive class of men, guiding the economic development of society, must all be properly well-versed in knowledge of the Supreme, right? Knowing factually his name, qualities, pastimes, entourage, paraphernalia, and personalities. The saints and the higher castes or orders of society are judged by their proportion of knowledge of the science of God, or tattva-jnana, knowledge of the truth, of what is really true, and not by any kind of birthright or bodily designation, right? That it has nothing to do with what family you're born in or whatever. It's your tattva-jnana. It's your understanding of truth. Such designations without any knowledge of the science of God and practical knowledge of devotional service of bhakti are considered to be all decorations of dead bodies, right? And when there's too much inflation of these decorated dead bodies in society, there develops so many anomalies in the progressive, peaceful life of the human being. And that's what Kali-yuga looks like, right? We're destroying the earth. We're killing animals at an absolutely mind-blowing, the amount of cruelty is just like, it's almost incalculable, and we practically all play a role in it. Right now, just in the past decade, and it's coming to a peak. Our ability to speak with one another and hear from one another, is at an all-time low. We let's face it, we're really in a mess right now. Our ability to speak to another and even try to understand another's position and try to understand what real truth is, we're really, really, really very weak at that right now.
I mean, my parents growing up, one was Republican, one was Democrat, and they were happily married. You can't do that nowadays. You can't have conversations with anybody. It's almost scary to even talk about things without it blowing up into violence.
And so we see that you and I have both been around for nearly 55 years. We've never seen elections where, like, on election day, the day before election day, all the stores are like boarding up their windows because they're afraid that there's going to be rioting and violence, right?
Yeah.
I'll say frankly, I'm no prophet or anything, but just like reading the writing on the wall.
You're not a prophet?
I'm not. No.
Mara, he's not a prophet. But only a prophet would say that. I'm no
My
prophet.
subtle way of, but,
Telling us all that you're a prophet. I'm not an avatar, but I want to say that
but I'm a lot like one.
you cannot see.
Well, but what I do anticipate, just reading the writing on the wall, is that like the United States is about to go through a period of a lot of confusion and a lot of fear. The next few months coming up. You feel that way?
Today is a great day not to be on social media. If you like peace of mind, because it's not going to help you. If you feel like you're going to find some information, you're not gonna.
And
You're just going to get your anxiety is going to get revved up. Today's a great day to chant some extra japa and to listen to Sweet Baby Krishna
and I'm not saying
control
like
what you can control, and not.
I'm not. Well, that's a good point. I'm not saying we should hide our head in the sand or anything like that. But my point is this: that I think the instability of our government, the instability of all our social systems, we live in a state of illusion where we think everything is very stable. And I think, we're starting to get a glimpse and maybe in the next few months, we're going to get like a clearer picture of just how unstable things actually are. And that causes fear. If we don't have any real spiritual grounding, that causes a type of fear in people. And when people are in fear, then they start to do even stupider things.
Sure.
So really, it was that the song Bhaja Hure Mana, by Bhaktivedanta Thakur? You like that one? Do you ever sing that one?
Isn't that
So
Thakur?
he sings, what assurance of real happiness is there in all of one's wealth, youthfulness, sons and family members? This life is tottering like a drop of water on a lotus petal.
Our life is, you know what a lotus petal has? Waxy leaves.
That's right. It's got waxy
So imagine
leaves.
putting a drop of water, and it turns into a bead. If you've ever seen this, it's amazing. It beads and rolls
up.
right off. That's your life. Our
It's
life,
like that drop of water.
right? We think it's solid. We think it's here. And it's like we are teetering like a drop of water on a waxy leaf.
If a little breeze just blows that flower, even just a little bit of that drop, it just falls right off, right?
Yeah.
And we walk around, we think everything's stable, but actually, and that's it. Again, I'm not a prophet. I swear.
He's not a prophet. He's saying he's not a prophet. What does that
Say it
mean?
again.
It means he's a prophet.
That means he's a prophet.
He's a
I'm
prophet.
not
Prophet
really.
would say.
But I do have a feeling that we're gonna see more than ever how unstable things are, and therefore, what I recommend is that, as you say, we might not have the power to change it, right? We might be able to, but we can be an agent of good in this world. We can be an agent of stability. We can be an agent of faith. We can be an agent of wisdom and knowledge and truth. And in order to be that agent, we need to absorb our mind deeply in spiritual knowledge. We need to, and that's what we're doing here, trying to do on a regular basis, right? To keep that mind absorbed and pass through this time fearlessly, right? Pass through this time knowing this is the nature of the world. The Bhagavatam's been telling me this all along, right? That the material energy is constantly shifting. Don't expect it to be stable. Expect it to be unstable, right? But there is something that is stable, and that's on the spiritual, right? Purusha, it's the spiritual energy, by nature it's stable. And Prakriti, the material energy, by nature it's unstable, right? And so as we pass through times of instability, what keeps us grounded, what keeps us stable, is that spiritual connection, that spiritual knowledge. At the end of this purport, Prabhupada says, the symptoms of such uncultured social animals is already in vogue. And it is the duty of leaders to take note of it and try to reform the social order by introducing the principles of the twice born, of the same principles we were speaking of before, trained in the science of God consciousness, of true spirituality. And he says this can be done by expanding the culture of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world, right? In the degraded condition of human society. And then it goes on to talk about the Kalki avatar. But he says this can be done by expanding the culture of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. That this culture of people coming together and sharing and discussing and reflecting on the wisdom of these super valuable, timeless spiritual texts. This is what society needs to be governed by, this type of wisdom. It doesn't have to be this religion or that religion, right? It's not saying everybody's got to convert to one religion, but what it's saying is that there are spiritual principles that are common to any genuine religious or spiritual tradition. And as a society, we need to understand them. We need to really know what they mean, not the superficial, quote unquote religious, ideas, but really understand that spiritual essence. And to whatever, if we're going to help things, if we're going to change things, we need to be stable ourselves passing through these times. And we need to be able to set the example of that for other people. And that's what we can do. I'll cast my vote, but I know that it's going to have absolutely no effect. I live in New York State, right? So it's like, we already know what's going to happen in New York State, where the vote will go. It's almost merely symbolic. But what I can really do is try to deeply absorb myself in spiritual knowledge and live by it and set the example, because that's what society needs more than anything.
This is our sadhana, is our spiritual roots, and it's the roots that's going to hold up, because it's going to blow. The wind's going to blow, and it's going to make for a lot of trees to come down. So if our roots are deep, like these tap roots of trees, if they go very deep, that's our spiritual connection, and then we can deal with all these windy storms. Sounds easier than it is, and we're going to get tested in a lot of ways. And this is the time, and I feel like maybe this whole year has been preparation for us to go deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yes.
And we're going to change the world to the degree that we can get deep, because people are going to look towards you when times are tough. It's not just to be stable, it's to be stable with a spiritual connection. And people need that in their life right now. And especially those, I'm seeing these faces every day, and I'm always impressed on Zoom. And I know there's others out there listening on Apple Podcasts, but people need you right now to be real deep, because above we were going to use the tree analogy. The trees, the palms are like bending. Right? If you're using the sea analogy, it's a storm on the sea. But really deep, that's where our strength is. And this is the way that we can go deep. The regular hearing, chanting, studying, connecting, controlling of the senses. This is the way we're going to be solid in these stormy times.
Right.
Woo!
There you go. There's an election day miracle today.
It's an election day miracle, man. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for the others out there, and thanks for the Zoomies. Here's one for you, Mara. Skanda, the Skanda Purana we quoted today. Who is Skanda?
And what does he ride on?
You got this, Mara? Come on.
Wait for somebody to give me...
Who are his parents? Who are his parents?
Son of Shiva.
All right.
Shiva.
Ganesh's brother. Oh, my daughter got it. My daughter. My daughter.
And what does he ride on?
We haven't got
what
that
does he
yet.
ride on?
Oh, a peacock.
Rides a peacock. Jamunajaya said it. Thanks, everybody, joining us. Oh, thanks for all the Patreon support. We actually really need that Patreon support, and we understand sometimes times are hard. People have to lessen their pledge. They give a pledge, and they have to lessen it. Some of you guys have raised your pledge.
That's cool.
We appreciate that. You can always raise it. And you can always start it by giving something to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. Today on Patreon, I'm doing a sweet baby Krishna. It's my month of Kartik, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And what else is happening today, Mara, on Patreon?
We also have Silas is teaching an asana class at 10 a.m.
I miss Silas.
I know.
I love
Silas.
Silas.
Wonderful.
And there's a men's Bhakti recovery group meeting at 11 a.m.
Right. So we have this incredible Bhakti recovery group. If you're struggling with addiction, or if you feel like, hey, this whole material world is an addiction, I need a circle of people that I can share with, we got you covered here. And this whole community is building faster than we even know what to do. It's sort of like, whoa! Thanks, everybody, for making it happen. And now, maybe the most important part of my day is the dancing and chanting to the holy name and transcendental lip syncing